Hey there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back. It's another Red Pill Religion podcast. Red Pill Religion, where we say, amongst other things, you do not have to be religious. You really, really don't. It's all right if you're not religious. However, that doesn't mean you get to lie about history, lie about science, and lie about religious people, which you would think would not be an objective, too difficult an objective to handle, but is too hard for some people in the capital A militant atheist group. So we'll be talking about that tonight. Please give us a like.
Y'all hear me?
Subscribe. Please tell your friends or enemies. Please support our work. We could use your financial as well as spiritual support. Check us out.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, and I'm doing introductions now.
Oh.
And please join us on redpillreligion.com, where you will find our PayPal, Patreon, Bitcoin, and Maker support donation buttons. Last night we had a great stream on Larry Correa and censorship on in the science fiction field. We are streaming every night. Our videos go up, our podcasts go up every day on redpillreligion.com, along with articles and things and stuff by other people, not just ours. So please check us out on redpillreligion.com. Please find us on gab.ai at redpillreligion, maker support at redpillreligion. Find our Red Pill Religion Facebook group. Find us on Patreon at Red Pill Religion. And please, you'll even find the link down in the low bar. Down at the bottom is a link to our free Discord chat server. Come on in, say hi. Anybody who's non-hostile to religious people is welcome. We got atheists, agnostics, Jews, Hindus, Christians of various sorts. Come on in. We want to say hi to people. So anyway, give us a like, give us a subscribe. All right, everybody, now joining us tonight in our response video to, who is this guy we're responding to again? Is it Jim Cornette?
Yes, Cornette.
The Jim Cornette Experience. Hard to believe this guy makes a living doing this, but hey. And the one who is responsible for that is Mr. Brass wanted to bring this to us. So say hi to everybody, Mr. Brass, and thank you for doing tonight's time points.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Mr. Brass. Looking forward to debunking this guy.
Thank you for bringing us the video and providing the timestamps, which is a lot of work. Also joining us is our old friend, going back to the earliest days of this project, our friend with his own channel, Deflating Atheism. Say hi to everybody, Deflating.
Hey, everyone. The operative word is old, as you all know. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Deflating Atheism is just ancient, man. I don't know if there's anybody older on YouTube besides me. But in any case, also joining us is our friend and now one of our team volunteers, the gay atheist, gaytheist, anarchist. Say hi to everybody. What do I call you on these streams? Gaytheist. I'm just going to keep calling you gaytheist for now.
Fuck you, Grandpa. I love you.
Okay, fine. Whippersnapper. All right.
Okay.
All right, Whippersnapper. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm Whippersnapper, also Young Punk, and whatever the fuck you want to call me, I don't care.
All right. And also joining us is our sort of deist, Buddhist-y, Christian-y, nothing in particular, but interested, our friend Robert, a.k.a. Comrade Dimitri. Say hi.
Hello, comrades. I am Robert Fried, a.k.a. the Russian bot known as Comrade Dimitri, broadcasting live from some rundown Siberian East Bumblefuck place.
Sounds good. And then finally, our friend White Engine, who's been a real trooper and a real friend to us for a long time. Say hi to everybody, White Engine.
Buongiorno.
Now, it is Memorial Day, and I haven't really gotten to relax because I had to work today. So I'm going to be a bad Catholic again and open a can of beer as we get ready to take down this video. Yes, I'm pouring it into a cup even. So what we did this time, because this is a 20-minute video, and I think we want to experiment. Brass just made about 5 or 6 cuts that are very short that he thought were relevant. And I think that's pretty good because I don't think we owe this guy or anybody, most of these guys, a whole lot of time. They say the same easily debunked stuff over and over and over again. But I'm going to sit here and drink my beer and see what you guys can come up with as we respond to these points, and then we'll probably just have a round table where we keep talking about it. Sound good, everybody? Well,
that
don't
sounds
speak
good.
up at once.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, you scared us before.
I did, didn't I? I'm sorry. All right. So what I'll do is we're going to play the part from about 1:14. I mean, who is this guy anyway? Actually, before we play it, who is this guy? I mean,
He's a celebrity.
forever.
He's a celebrity. He's more known for his work in professional wrestling. He's been a manager, but he's also known for just being, for his political views, and for just as also being an atheist.
I think him being a wrestling, and I assume it's an announcer for like the fake wrestling kind, not like he's a real super serious following Rick and Roma. He's one of the guys who announces fake wrestling. And by the way, I like fake wrestling. I just you know it's
wannabe Jim Ross.
It makes sense too, because atheists, when they talk about history, are as idiotic and moronic as the average, wrestling stage show. Okay, so
That's insulting to wrestling stage shows.
makes sense. It really does. All right, so we're going to watch from 1:14 to 1:49. Let me know if you have any sound or any issues, guys.
But seriously, more damage has been done to the human race by religion than anything else in modern history. More, the Crusades.
Oh God.
The more wars have been started, more persecution of individual races and peoples, more damage has been done to the accumulated knowledge of wrestling history by religion. The destruction of the libraries of Alexandria.
You liar!
Oh my God!
It's not even about religion per se. It's about my religion. Do you, as George Carlin said, do you believe in God? Yes. Okay. Do you believe in my God? No. Okay. Fuck you. Boom.
Yeah, and that's not, and George Carlin was dumb on that because that's not historically accurate. But I'm going to just sit here and drink my beer. And who wants to go first in taking this trash apart?
Well, can I just ask Mr. Brass, was this an anti-religion rant, or was this an aside in just a show where he just went on the topic of religion?
Oh, this was an anti-religion rant.
Okay, so that was the topic of the day.
Yeah.
So, of course, he starts out strong with the usual ridiculously shallow, ill-informed talking points about the Crusades and makes up a bunch of other stuff that's not historically accurate.
Yeah, well, it's like every dimwit on the internet recites these kind of talking points without a scintillion of evidence to support it. No, saying that religion is the cause of most of the world's wars is wrong. In fact, it is egregiously wrong. It is not even close to being right. And of course, Christians burned down the Library of Alexandria. That's another historical canard. I think Carl Sagan was instrumental in propagating that, as he was instrumental in propagating a whole lot of anti-Christian canards. But there's actually very little evidence the Library of Alexandria ever burned down. It probably just kind of dissipated. Scavengers took various things from it until it was no more.
Well, here's the thing.
That was the Serapeum that was destroyed.
Yeah, I was gonna say the idol, which was Serapis, was destroyed by a Christian mob. However, most historians agree that the actual library was burned down by Julius Caesar in his Alexandrian campaign. He set fire to his own ships as a sort of a scorched earth policy, and it ended up destroying the library. However, a lot of historians believe that many of the books and scrolls that were inside the Library of Alexandria made their way to Constantinople, where they would fuel the intellectual heritage of the Byzantine Empire, the future Byzantine Empire.
Weren't the Christians awful?
And hell, even on the wrestling level, like if he's saying that Christianity has ruined the wrestling history, a lot of the wrestling history comes from the South, because they're the big prioriters of that, and not really anti-religious people, may I mind you. A lot of them in the South are really religious Christians, and they've been instrumental in keeping the wrestling business alive. So I don't know where the fuck he gets this idea from, that they've somehow been disastrous to wrestling history, when they've been like the ones that have kept wrestling alive and going for a long time.
I was gonna say in medieval Europe,
and wrestling's in the Bible. Remember Jacob and the angel?
yeah.
Jacob
Israel-
means wrestles with God.
Israel, the name. Yeah, the name means one who wrestles with God.
Yep.
Also, in Europe, in medieval Europe during the Christian times, they would have the tournaments where it wasn't
Shut up,
exactly wrestling, but they
Shut
would
up,
have
you're educating him. Shut up.
Well, and also like only 7% of all the wars that have been said to have been religious cause are actually in there. Like, we've already gone into this, like, but Charles Phillips and Alan Axelrod in their Encyclopedia of Wars only record that 7% of wars have a religious cause to them.
Right.
So this whole notion that religion has caused this massive amount of wars is ridiculous.
Well, and more
And the anti-theistic communists, look what they did in 1 century than religion did in its entirety.
And let me add that I forgot what I was about to say. I apologize. Man, I only just opened my beer. Even that 7% or so of all wars having a religious basis, if you look at that 7% or so, you wind up fighting. There was almost always something else too going on. Usually something involving money or inheritance or control of a country or trade routes. Rarely was it just purely religious. And
I was going to say that the Northern Crusades happened because the Western European countries, that were subordinate to the papacy, they wanted to control the trade routes that connected the East and the West. The East towards, what was the Rus states or medieval Russia, and the Western states like, the Holy Roman Empire, which was Germany, Italy, France, and all that.
Yeah. And
the trade route was known as the Amber Road.
And let me tell you something, anti-religious people have just killed so many more in the name of anti-religion that I actually would like to, invite Jim Cornette to come talk to me about this. I plan one day about trying to ask Matt Dillahunty this. Given the horrific record of anti-religious people who talk just like you, Jim Cornette, should those of us who are religious tolerate you or people who talk like us, people who talk like you? Should we tolerate you in our presence? Should we do business with you? Should we give you money? Should we even recognize that you have civil rights? And if so, why should we? Now, it's a real question. I mean, it's only mildly rhetorical. Jim Cornette, why does any Christian, why does any Jew, why does any Muslim, Zoroastrian, Sikh, Hindu, Muslim, why does any of them care about you or your problems or your assertions about us? Why shouldn't we just, support having your rights stripped? Why not?
Wait a minute, how long has this guy been doing wrestling?
I don't know. I imagine he thinks that offending Christians, offending religious people, long term is a good strategy for him. Like he's being a bad guy wrestler and offending the audience. But in point of fact, when I listen to him, I just think, wow, he's awful and pathetic. I don't know. Anybody
Try to do it in style like Stone Cold. Austin 316.
I've been known to do that stuff. In fact, I've admitted it. Quite a few videos, I've totally admitted that I went Jerry Springer. I went WWF. Come on, let's go. You suck. Boo, you're an idiot. Anybody can do that, right? And so I think that's what maybe he thinks he's doing. He's just being.
I used to love wrestling back in the late '90s, the Attitude Era. That was my shit.
Oh yeah, Rowdy Piper and Hulk Hogan, and Andre.
Stone Cold, The Undertaker, The Rock, Triple H, all them.
Oh yeah. And here in the Detroit area, we had the Iron Sheik and a whole bunch of other cool wrestling things.
Hey, the Iron Sheik.
Yeah. Oh well. I'll tell you what. Why don't we just move on to the next?
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next segment just to see what we've got. We've got 247 to 306. We're not going to try and do this whole video, but let's see.
The idea of an invisible supreme being in the sky watching over. Well, he must be a pretty shitty supreme being because he's fucked a lot of shit up.
Well, absolutely. There was a
Just
thing that
busts me out of my mind.
there was a thing that Reagan once said, and it was, the scariest words of the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you." I think it's quite scarier to hear someone say, I'm here because God told me to be here. I'm here.
Well, lady,
charities.
Rude.
Go ahead, guys. Go ahead.
Who's this lady?
I don't
Basically said that, fuck all those religious charities.
Did she seriously just fucking say that?
Well, she didn't say that outright, but she said, she said that
did she
Reagan.
just seriously said what she said on that stream?
Yeah.
Because
What was it you heard? Our gay atheist friend, what was it that you just heard from her?
She's just saying that hearing a religious person saying, "Hi, we're here because God told us so," is scarier than being told, "Hi, we're government, we're here to help." Here's the thing. Then again,
That's what
here's where my anarcho-capitalism comes in. Government is not a friend. It is no more than an enemy. I would rather be side by side with my Christian anarcho-capitalist friends. I would rather be side by side with all these people than have government tell me they're here to help me. I'd rather have all of you tell me you're here in the name of God than ever have government tell me that they're here to help.
Well, you're an anarchist, so of course you tend to think that way. But I mean, actually, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I mean, this really offends me. Yeah, and I'll tell you why it really offends me, because it's so stupid. I would love to actually challenge Jim Cornette to do a debate with me. And by the way, we would do a WWF style debate, so I would be happy to be all bombastic and fun about it. But you're an idiot, sir, and your co-host there is oh my God. Back in my days when I was an atheist, there were still times when Christians did all kinds of kind things for me, and I could see the good things they were doing in my community and in the world, and I did not hate them for it. And there was a time when I was actually homeless. Functionally, I was homeless. I mean, I technically had a legal address, but it was not good. And I will always remember that me, as a Catholic Christian, a Mormon family took me in. And if you know anything about, Mormonism versus Catholicism, they are, we don't even recognize each other as valid Christians, right? And next door, there was a Hindu family living next to the Mormon family that I was living with. And that Hindu family, knowing me, a guy who his whole life had fallen apart, and I had long hair and I had a beard and I was depressed and at times suicidal. My whole life was falling apart. And those Hindus were so incredibly kind and gracious and supportive, and would invite me to family gatherings and parties, and would give me food and feed me and just check in on me. And it's been years since then. It's been almost 10 years, and I still hear from one of them who will, contact me on Skype for my birthday and say, "God bless you." And he's a Hindu, right? And the Mormon family, I still see them all the time. And they all did so much for me, as did some fundamental. I rag on fundamentalist Christians, and fundamentalist Christians have done a lot for me. Jews, Orthodox Jews have done a lot for me. I listen to you people and I ask, what damage has the religious people done to you exactly? Because religious people who were not my religion did all kinds of things for me my whole life to make my world better. All right.
I have something to answer.
Or anybody else got anything to say?
Yeah, well, before the start, I told Max I kind of regretted that I was not here for the friendly atheist takedown. But basically, what you see with all these little atheist monologues is it's basically the same shit in different packages. So I feel like we could be playing like atheist buzzword bingo or something here. I mean, it's the same shit whether you're watching this or you're watching like an edgy anti-religion Bill Burr comedy routine or something, or you're watching Coach Red Pill It's like, okay, you know he's going to say all the world's wars start with a religion. You know he's going to say something about a man in the sky. I mean, we could be playing bingo with this idiocy.
The Crusades.
It is all. It's just also completely fungible. It's like we could reply to this guy. The next week we could be addressing the same exact idiotic points with some other atheist.
Well, I'm giving it to you that way. I mean, part of it, I've been pleased to see that other people associated with Red Pill religion and people not even associated have begun doing what we're doing, which is just pulling up these videos and responding to them and ridiculing them because they need it. Dude, this reminds me of the Greek tale of Sisyphus. Is anybody not familiar with Sisyphus?
Oh, I love that story.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just give it to you anyway. Sisyphus was, this is, ancient.
We're rolling giant turds up the hill. We're rolling enormous turds up a hill. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Sisyphus was cursed by the guy. He was in hell. This is Greek, by the way. It's a myth that Christians invented the idea of hell. But it was a Greek idea of hell, and Sisyphus was punished. I forget what he had done to deserve it, but basically he was cursed to spend all of eternity trying to roll a boulder up a hill, and then always, no matter what he did, before he got to the top, it would get out of his hands and it would fall down. He would roll back down. And it seems like answering these atheist videos exactly like Sisyphus, because really we answer the same points over and over and over again, and they don't really respond to them. And that's because they know they have no defensible position. More Christians need to just start doing this. Be snotty and sarcastic and skeptical of these people, because they're not funny, they're not clever, they're not brave, they're just awful. Sorry, that's just me. Anybody?
I wasn't aware there was an invisible man in the sky. Are you?
Oh yeah, the invisible man in the sky. He's just crushed my entire worldview by saying God is an invisible sky fairy, and religion is bad and evil. Yeah. All right, let's play the point from 337 to 401. Mercifully short. Let's see.
This whole George Bush and the Republican fucking born again fiasco thing, it drives me out of my mind. Why wouldn't the Middle East think we were trying to start a holy war? Because that's the vibe that George Bush and the Republican, the Christian conservatives gave off, was we're trying to destroy your way of life. And those people, they really believe their shit.
You know what? Let me. Well, first off, when did he?
Hold on. Hitchens was the biggest supporter of the Iraq War.
That's true.
Let's see. This is 2017. Okay, so he made this about a year ago. 2017. By March 2017, George W. Bush had left the presidency more than 8 years previously. It's now more than 9 years ago. Do you have anything other than George Bush to talk about? I'm just curious. By the way, I'm 52 years old, and I was heavily involved in politics in the early 2000s. And we did not go to war in Iraq for religious reasons. I'm sorry. Anybody who says we did is a liar. That's not why we went to Iraq, Jim.
Right. Also, Bush
was mainly cleaning up his daddy's mess during the Gulf War.
Right, and George W. Bush was the one who specifically said that, he coined that kind of asinine phrase, Islam is the religion of peace.
Yeah, it was George W. Bush who specifically said Islam is a religion of peace.
That the regressive left kind of adapted.
Yeah, now they use it, but they got it from Bush. But you're going to make it all about how supposedly, dude. I mean, when do you ever come back into the current decade? I mean, this was contemporary, edgy, cutting edge commentary in 2004.
Well, those were the glory days of new atheism. I mean, September 11th was the best thing that ever happened to atheism. And it was like in 2005, you could be all edgy and insouciant and be saying things about the Christian Taliban. And that was very au courant at the time. And so it's kind of new atheism has kind of been preserved in amber for the last 12 years.
The thing about the whole Christian Taliban thing, I knew from the start that was never going to happen, because you're comparing, a religion in a developed country versus, another religion in an underdeveloped country. So, that I knew from the start that the whole Christian Taliban trope that the new atheists love to spout was, bunk.
Well,
It would
it's
never
stupid
happen.
because Christianity does not even provide a template for running a government. So a Christian theocracy is just a nonsensical concept.
Right.
Tell that to the Christians I grew up with.
Go ahead, tell us about it, because there are Christians who.
First off, my grandmother believes all homosexuals should be in jail or executed.
I'm sorry, did your grandma really talk that way?
Another thing she believes, if you're not a Republican and you're not trying to create a Christian nation and a theocratic Christian nation, you're a retard.
Okay.
And also, she wants to basically make gambling illegal, blue laws back in place for everybody, no liquor to be sold, all drugs illegal, increase the war on drugs even more, sex outside of marriage illegal, you name it.
All right. Go ahead, Rob.
And there's a number of people from my parents' church that do believe in that also. I'm not talking about old people.
Sure, you know what? Sure there are, but go ahead, Deflating. What were you about to say?
No, I was just going to say, yes. I mean that's all unfortunate, but I mean that those are not dictates from the Christian religion. No, those are her values that she wants to impose that may be informed by her Christian faith. But it's not like, okay, this is in the Bible, therefore we could use this as a template for running a government the same way you can with Sharia law.
She looks to the Old Testament for that.
Well, and that's fine. The only thing I would say about that is that, well, Grandma's got a right to her opinion. That's number one. Number two, I mean, actually, I'm going to really reemphasize that. She really does have a right to her opinion. I will go back to a point I've tried to make. I even made this on the Non Sequitur show and for some others. Is like, if you truly believe in freedom and individual choice and all that, free speech and all that. Listen, if Grandma thinks that, she thinks it, right?
Oh yeah.
The only thing I would point out as a counter there is that it was Augustine of Hippo going back 1600 years plus, I think, who said that laws against things like pornography, because pornography was around in 1600 years ago. It was. And prostitution and all that stuff were probably not very productive. And
Jesus hung out with prostitutes.
Jesus hung out with prostitutes. That's exactly right. So have I, for that matter.
Same.
No, I don't mean I've hired them. I mean I talk to people.
Right, Max.
Actually, I never would hire a prostitute, but that's another conversation. It's not even a moral thing. Even when I was an atheist, I told myself I would never ever hire a prostitute because I thought it would cheapen me to hire a prostitute. But that's a whole conversation.
Hire one to go have fun with, not have sex, just go have fun with.
Dude, it's actually shocking how many guys will actually hire a prostitute just to keep them company or cuddle with them. A lot of guys are like that. That's a really deep conversation we ought to have on a men's rights thread, because it's really true. Most guys actually do want the emotional component with a woman, and it's a lie to say they only want sex. But you know what? That said, and now we're off hand. Bottom line is, dude, you just claimed something about Bush. Even if you don't like Bush, that's just a total lie. And like really ragging on George W. Bush now when we've had 8 years of Obama and 2 years of Trump. Okay, why don't we go ahead to?
I wanted to say something real quick. Barack Obama, he fucked up the Middle East more, in my opinion, than George W. Bush with his Arab Spring policy, which overthrew a lot of those secular Middle Eastern rulers like Muammar Gaddafi, and he tried to overthrow Assad. So, and that's what caused the European migration crisis that still goes on to this day, and caused a whole bunch of terrorism and, caused the rise of ISIS.
I don't know that we need to get into a back and forth of which president did bad or good, but I will just say it's ridiculous, Jim, to listen to you pretend that politics was ever that simple.
Right. And I'm saying that, if he's going to hold, George W. Bush responsible for that, then he also has to hold Obama for the same kind of crap.
And Reagan.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so let's go ahead and play the next segment, 1012 to 1116, the Treaty of Tripoli. This should be fun.
To some of the listeners, there's a thing called the Treaty of Tripoli, which was, I believe, written in 1796 and adopted by the Congress in 1797. And this was brokering the peace between the United States and Tripolitania at the time, which is now Algeria, I believe. And it was submitted to the Senate by John Adams and ratified unanimously. And it included this statement: as the government of the United States of America is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion, as it has in itself no character or enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslims. These were Muslims that we were fighting at the time. And as the said United States never entered into any war or act of hostility against any Mohammedan nation, that was the word they were using at the time, it is declared by parties that no pretext arising from religious opinion shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries. And that first sentence, not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, unanimously passed by the U.S. Senate.
Oh gosh, I've been hearing this one for years. I actually want to hear Robert address this, but also anybody else.
Oh, gee. It's true that the Treaty of Tripoli was passed to kind of satiate and pacify, what they felt were religious undertones to the whole anti-Barbary pirates thing. And so the founding fathers, they wrote that in to tell the Muslims in what is now Algeria that they were not at all hostile to Islam, and they're not trying to be theocratic in any sense. However, Christianity did play a massive founding role in the U.S. government. When they say that we weren't founded as a Christian nation, they obviously meant like they didn't want a state church, for example.
Yep, like they did not want a state church. That's what they meant.
Yeah, because the British had the Anglican Church, where one church dominated all others, and that was kind of. And here in the colonies, we had all kinds of Christian denominations. We had Catholics, we had Quakers, we had Methodists, we had Baptists, etc. And that's why they kind of chose church-state separation as the establishment, so to say. But no, religion was important to the foundation of the early American Republic. John Adams stated. I always thought it was James Madison. It was actually John Adams. John Adams said that quote, our Constitution was meant for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other.
And in fact, you can find statements like that from George Washington. You can even find statements similar from Thomas Jefferson, James Madison. It goes on and on. Even some of the most influential founders were not religious, but they viewed religion as something you needed to have respect for and you needed to encourage and inculcate.
And if you see a quote from Thomas Jefferson or something plastered across the billboard by the American Atheists, that quote is probably a lie or a misattribution or something taken grossly out of context, because atheists love their founding father quotes that are basically apocryphal or taken out of context.
But the founding fathers owned slaves, but they only bitch about slavery when it's referred to in the Old Testament.
I mean, if I can also add something to that whole thing, is like the Treaty of Tripoli was an 18th century treaty between the American with the Muslim pirates, and basically what they were saying is like, yeah, we're not a Christian theocracy, because the Muslims that they were talking to they believed, because they were under a Muslim theocracy, so they were more or less saying that they're not a Christian theocracy. And also, when you actually do look into the history, like the renegotiated version of this treaty that happened 8 years later did not include this article, and then the Arabic version of this, it also didn't include it. So there was no agreement on this particular article. So therefore, the entire thing was invalid to begin with.
I think it's also worth pointing out, I think it's hilarious that atheists have this little echo chamber where the same 5 points just bounce around in perpetuity. the Treaty of Tripoli is not active law. It is not the law of the land. So the fact that they have to take this one clause in one sentence in a piece of not even a piece of active law, it just speaks so much about their desperation to prove their points.
And none of the founding fathers were atheists. Half of them were Christians,
No.
half were deists.
No,
And the deists among them were still operating on Judeo-Christian values.
exactly.
Respect for them and have
Also-
respect for them.
Also, there's another.
Except Paine, but the rest of the founding fathers couldn't stand him.
Yeah.
Right.
The founders couldn't
Also,
stand
I
it.
wanted to say.
Go ahead.
I wanted to say also there's actually another treaty that just came to my mind, and I tried to find it, and I think I just found it. It was called the Treaty of Tunis, and it was actually established later than the Treaty of Tripoli. The Treaty of Tripoli was it was signed on November 4th, 1796, and basically ratified on and it took effect on June 10th, 1797. There's another treaty here called the Treaty of Tunis, which was ratified and signed on August 28, 1797. And here's what it says. It begins, quote, God is infinite under the auspices of the greatest, etc. Here we skip to those reign, may God prosper until the end of ages, etc. I'll just skip down to the important part. And the most distinguished and honored president of the United States of America, the most distinguished among those who profess the religion of the Messiah, note that part, of whom may the end be happy, we have concluded between us, etc. It may as well be argued that the religion of the Messiah is adopted by this treaty. Note that part.
Okay.
Now the term Messiah could be kind of loosely defined. You could say, it refers to all the Abrahamic religions, because all the Abrahamic religions believe in the Messiah: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Right.
But they were in no way being hostile to Christianity.
It's really interesting too, because when you even look, you know much about that period of American history when that treaty was ratified, which again has, as Deflating Atheism says, has no active force in American law. Was real specific. It was with the Barbary pirates. The Barbary pirates on the Barbary coast were Muslims, but they were not theocrats. And in fact, those Barbary pirates disliked some Muslim theocrats. So when they signed something saying, actually, if you look, the treaty that says with the Barbary pirates, actually, the one they're quoting says both that the United States is not founded as a Christian nation and says that the Barbary pirates aren't really necessarily founded as a Muslim nation, because they're not. What they were both doing was recognizing that we're not theocrats.
And they go on with the separation of church and state, which it was to protect the church.
Yes, and they're all going to, something like that. Look, basically what that treaty meant was, hey, we agree with you. This is not a religious war. We have a disagreement over some stuff. That's really all that meant. It didn't mean they were. And truly, they did not think of themselves as a theocratic state. They did not think, oh yes, we're going to do everything through the Bible first. But these guys are being so dishonest in how they look.
Well, no one argues that the United States was a Christian theocracy, from as far as I tell. At best, Christians will say that the social values of Christianity have played a great part in the founding of the United States, which we can have a debate on that. But no Christian, not even the fundamentalists I know, say that they believe that America was intended to be a Christian theocracy.
Yep, exactly. Okay.
French.
I'm sorry, do you have something to say?
I must have grown up in the French then.
Yeah.
Fundamentalist. And hi from my mother and father.
Yeah, we probably can't. We can't hear you, Gatheist. Sorry, you're breaking up real bad, and you're hard to hear. Yeah, no, really, I can't hear you. So we're gonna have, and not being rude, but we're probably gonna mute you because you're making a lot of noise too. But what our gay atheist anarchist friend Derek there was just saying is that in his family, he knows Christian theocrats who think in these very simplistic terms. We're a Christian nation. We're supposed to do it that way. You and I ought to have a whole stream about that, Harmsy, because there are a subset of Christians who think that way. There really are, and we ought to talk about them. The only thing I'll say about that, and I would let you say more, Harmsy, but you're making too much noise. So like I said, maybe we'll come back to it. But I agree there are Christians who think that way. I just think it's easy to get a distorted view of how important they are, how influential they are, even in the halls of power. But okay, let's go ahead.
Can I just interject a point? And I don't want to get too off topic, but the whole specter of theocracy is only brought up when the secular liberals encounter something they don't like. Mr. Brass, you're making obnoxious sounds too. Sorry about that. But yes, I mean, like, if they don't like my position on abortion, that's theocracy. But the Bible also instructs us. They would actually criticize us for not being Christian enough if we don't advocate like a universal health care or something. That's part of the biblical urge to take care of the poor and the needy and the sick. Well, in that case, we're not Christian enough, even though those are Christian values, is to take care of the poor and the sick. But that's not theocracy when we enact their own little social welfare programs. And yeah, they don't like George W. Bush because he brought his evangelical faith up as a topic of conversation. Well, like it or not, Obama talked about his Christian faith too. But since they agree with him, it doesn't become an issue. So they're not actually opposed to religiously informed policy in general. Just when they don't like it, that becomes an issue.
Yes, in fact, just to mention it, Hillary Clinton claimed to be a Methodist, and Barack Obama went out of his way to show himself going to church. So why were you not afraid of Obama and Clinton as theocrats, Jim? Just curious. Were Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton theocrats? I mean, Hillary, even in the 2016 campaign trail, claimed that she still, read the Bible all the time. At what point were you scared that Hillary was a theocrat because she bragged about being a Methodist and going to church? Just curious, Jim. Okay, let's see. 1331 and 1401. We're going to get to learn about Moses and the prophets here.
Have you ever noticed also, anybody who comes up with a religion, from Joseph Smith to Moses to anybody else, they always go up top of a mountain or out in the woods, and they're all alone, and they come back and they say, hey, I just talked to God. He's got a whole list of shit he don't want us to be doing anymore. Nobody ever witnesses this. And people take it as on the surface of it as legitimate fact.
Okay. All right. He is into wrestling, isn't he? Who wants to say something about that?
Mountains were revered as the high places where people would go to back in the ancient Near East. They were revered as, places that the gods dwell, apparently, but they were also significant as they were signified high places.
Well, even the atheist Nietzsche had Zarathustra go on top of a mountain. So I mean, it's not exclusively even religious or theistic.
It is normal in humans to think of higher as better and lower as not. That's universal in all human cultures.
Back when I was agnostic, I would usually joke about that, about Moses going up the mountain. He's like, okay, I'm going to go get the 10 Commandments now. I'll be right back.
Sure. That's the thing, too. I mean, like, I used to, some religious humor is just funny, and religious people will tell each other jokes like that. I mean, like, I wouldn't be offended by that joke. Even I'm a religious man now. You liked that joke when you were agnostic. Fine. That joke.
I still like that joke on the. You saw that movie, the History of the World Part 1.
I do like Mel Brooks in History of the World. What was the one you're talking about?
The Moses scene. where he broke it. It was like, I got these 15, and he smashed the tablet. He's like, oh, 10 commandments for all to obey.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that no matter what joke you make, you can't take too much credit in the intelligence of the people who are listening to you. Because I remember I used to make a joke about the kind of anglicized names that we use in the Bible. I used to say, like, oh, do you really think 2,000 years ago in the Near East, people were actually called Josh? Do you actually think, hey, Josh, this is what I say to you? And so that was a joke. But now I discovered there are atheists who actually think that's an argument. Is that no, they didn't actually have these names that we use nowadays, and
it was Yash.
It's all made up. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's another funny thing is like he's using this whole thing to discredit Moses and stuff when he forgets that Moses had done so many miracles and the fact that he had brought the slaves out of Egypt and stuff that they had no reason to distrust his claims. So, I mean, they weren't believing just like on blind faith that what Moses was saying was true. They had plenty of evidence of him doing miracles, bringing them out of Egypt, like splitting the seas.
Oh,
so, I mean, they had plenty of reasons.
Excellent point.
They had just walked across the Dead Sea and seen the waters parted and watched.
No, it was the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea.
Okay, fine, whatever. Watch them part the sea and walk through it, and watch Moses's, troops be drowned and all that. Yeah. All right.
So I mean, they weren't, just believing like on blind faith what Moses said. Like it's not like Moses was just some random dude that came up to a group of people and said, "Hey guys, I just came from a mountain and this is what God said. But here, take my word for it." No, they knew Moses. They knew him for a long time, and they seen him perform so many different acts that it would have been stupid of them to think that he did not talk to God.
Hold on, Abraham didn't come across God on a mountain.
Yeah.
He just talked to him out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You will see this throughout the Bible, is that nowhere is a blind faith advocated as a virtue. When people are asked to believe, it is always based on a demonstration of divine power.
Well, yeah, they start collectively arguing about doubting Thomas.
Oh my God.
You notice that? You noticed that as of late?
Well, yeah, that was in the other video we did. Yeah, and no, they said that doubting Thomas was cast as a bad guy. I don't know if you thought doubting Thomas was a bad guy.
It goes along with our narrative. Just go along with it.
Yeah.
It's just stupid because they clearly just don't know what they're talking about with this stuff.
No, it is. Doubting Thomas, Saint Thomas, the Apostle, is one of my favorites because he just literally shows how. Because I'm actually kind of an insecure skeptic. I'm always skeptical of things, and doubting Thomas, Thomas the Apostle, Saint Thomas. To me, he's a very sympathetic character because he was afraid to believe the evidence of his own senses.
Like he wasn't a skeptic though; he was a denialist. He had the evidence in front of his face, but he denied it.
Well, an insecure skeptic, a neurotic skeptic. I don't think he was being just stubborn. Like he doubted himself.
No, he was afraid because he abandoned Jesus, and he was like, "No, I must be hallucinating. I saw him die."
Well, right, and he was doubting himself, and he was doubting his senses, and he was doubting his fellows, and he wound up recorded as that because I really think he was recorded with that tale in the Gospels so that people would see, look, even the hardcore skeptic, even the one who's having a hard time believing anything, he has a place here too.
Well, I mean, even if you look at it, like, here's what he had. Like, he had his closest friends telling him that Jesus rose from the dead. He's seen the empty tomb. He had also, during Jesus' lifetime, had seen Jesus raise Lazarus from the dead and perform other miracles. So, I mean, he had plenty of reason to think that Jesus was serious about, like, saying he was going to rise from the dead.
And he didn't want to believe it, so he said, I won't believe it till I can touch it and see it myself. But what did Jesus do? Did Jesus curse him? Jesus gave him a little bit of a hard time, but he didn't give him a real hard time. He's like, come and look. Here it is, man. In other words, Jesus wasn't mad at him. I mean, he might have been a little condescending, but he's like, no, come, look here. It's me. Really, it's me. I actually think it's kind of a tender moment, actually, and they lose all subtlety on it. They just lose all subtlety on it. All right. Last bit that Brass picked out for us. 1738 to 1820. Religion as a means of controlling people. By the way, Jim Cornette, atheism is a much more effective way of controlling people than religion ever has been. But okay, let's go ahead and play this last bit so we can comment on it.
Maybe the best thing that Christ can do for us is having people realize that his concepts were great, but virgin births, talking snakes, Garden of Eden, Earth being created in 6 days, maybe not, but the idea, because when the Bible was written, there were no police forces. There were no way to control people. You couldn't control people from murdering and slaughtering people, as in the Dark Ages, except by saying, well, when you die, you're going to a bad place with fire and hell and eternal brimstone and damnation forever. That's the way you control people. Well, now we're a little more civilized, so maybe we should go to the Christ-like tendencies and beliefs of love your brother. Come on, everybody. Shine on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now.
Let this go.
And that's right now, damn it. Right now.
Maybe we ought to follow the principles instead of the medieval tactics.
Okay, so I'm going to let other people comment on this, but let me comment on your medieval tactics, Jim. You are making the most primitive showing of what the people you're criticizing are. In other words, you're a hypocrite, sir, because you are giving the worst version of your opponent's arguments versus the best. You're straw manning. You're going out of your way to not allow people to explain what they think. In other words, you're doing what you accuse others of. Jim Cornette, I dare you to come on and talk to me, sir. I will not turn you into a Christian. I will not turn you into a, oh, I'm a Bible boy and I believe everything in this Bible because I read it out of this Bible, so it must be true. I ain't going to tell you and turn you into one of those at all. But dude,
Bible man's in the Bible.
Bible man's in the Bible. I got my answer. John 3:16. That's all you need to know. Just John 3:16. Do you know John 3:16, boy? Do you know John 3:16? Do you believe that? Okay, you're saved. Otherwise, you're not saved. Yeah. I'm not one of those guys, and neither are most Christians, and you know it, Jim Cornette. So when are you going to have a real conversation with a mature, knowledgeable man rather than this straw manning you're doing?
Hell is no more a place of fire and brimstone than heaven is a wedding banquet or a vineyard. Those were idioms used by Christ in order to illustrate the seriousness of his point.
There you go. Who else has something to say?
Oh, yeah, you go, Robert Fried.
Robert Fried. But he mentioned the so-called Dark Ages. I mean, oh, God.
There were no Dark Ages.
Most historians drop the usage of the term the Dark Ages as a pejorative. There were many scientific advances that came out of the so-called Dark Ages, such as the founding of the university. The Catholic Church lifted the ban on the gosh, I can't think, dissection, human dissection. That's what it was. They uplifted that ban that the pagan Romans had previously put on, and people were allowed to experiment on human bodies in the Middle Ages. There was just so many advances in the medieval times.
Anyway, for the talking snake bit, that was the term used for the serpent in Eden was Nahash, which also means the shining one, the light bringer, Lucifer.
Let me mention for Jim and his audience here, not that I think Jim reads books, because I don't think Jim Cornette reads books, and I don't think Jim Cornette especially reads books that challenge his ideological worldview. But if he's inclined to read a book that is well referenced in historical, try James Hannam's God's Philosophers, How the Medieval World Laid the Foundations of Modern Science, which is a real good history book, Jim. You might want to try learning how to read books. You're an atheist, so you probably don't read books much.
They read anti-theist propaganda books.
Well, right.
Also, there's
Well,
a
I mean, in the chat, like in this video, the whole video, he does go into how he read The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins and claim that that it was so scientifically and it goes over so many people's heads. I said, so I mean, yeah, Jim. If that is what goes over your head, I think you need. I think the books that Max may be recommending might just blow your mind.
Also,
like the New Atheist Denial of History. He should read that one.
That's a good book to read. Also, this is something that Inspiring Philosophy brought up when I was live streaming with him the other day. The History of Medieval Worlds is a good book, and anything written by Ronald Numbers and David Lindbergh.
Yeah, I mean, and another thing that he goes into is how religion is such a good. Like he says that there was no police officers or there was no people back then to scare the people into believing into these things. But here's what he doesn't recognize. Back when the Bible was being written, like in Job and Genesis level time, people were scared to death that they were going to be killed off by other tribes and they were going to have their religion taken away from them. They fought like tooth and nail with different tribes for the entire time during these periods. So they did not lack fear at that time. They were plenty afraid of many things. And part of Genesis and Job portray this. So this whole thing, they needed a reason to be afraid. It's just stupid. And then they had plenty of...
Go ahead.
And they also had religion is probably the worst way to control people because it gives people too much diversity. Unlike communism or a particular political party, you can only be this with a certain level of doctrines there's no possible way you can interpret them differently. And if you do try to interpret them differently, you'll be killed. And if religion is such this way of controlling people, then it fails miserably because there is so much diversity, even among different sects of particular religions.
Right. That's why the many of the totalitarian regimes of the past and present, and even up today, with the present, they try to eradicate, religion or put severe restrictions on it, such as the French revolutionaries tried to. They had something known as the de-Christianization campaign of France, where they tried to eradicate French Christianity from the country, and it was really violent. The German Nazis had the Kirchenkampf, which was the church struggle or struggle against the churches. That was the Nazi campaign against Christianity, and the communists had all their anti-religion campaigns.
Well, if you want to control a populace, it's probably a lot more effective to tell them that they are these predetermined leaves being blown around by the wind, rather than that they are divine beings created in the image of a loving God with free will and all, whatnot. So, I feel like we're playing bingo here. He's throwing out these talking points, and I'm just marking them off the board. We got the talking snakes. We got that out of the way. Then we have this big sociological proclamation that religion was invented to control. First off, where's this evidence that religion was ever invented? That someone was just sitting around and decided to come up with the idea of religion? That's another atheist kind of talking point.
If it was invented, it is a 50,000-year-old invention.
Yeah, really going very far back. And I love the pseudo-sociology. I always say the atheist favorite sciences are pseudo-psychology and pseudo-sociology. And so religion was created to control because they didn't have police forces back then. Okay, is there any evidence to back this claim up? Or are you just saying it because it sounds good to you, or you heard some other atheists say it? I mean, it's completely ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, he's the type of guy that he finds Bill Maher and George Carlin to be the top prominent thinkers on matters of religion. So yeah,
right. My problem with new atheism is these new atheists and their adherents, their little loyal followers. They think they know everything about the sociology of religion and the history of it.
And to someone who knows jack shit about philosophy, the God delusion might seem impressive.
Yeah. That's all they think they think they know everything about the history of religion and sociology of religion just by reading a few books by Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens.
Really, the only thing that the God Delusion got right was the name of its title, and that's about pretty much it. Like, everything in the contents of that book are almost demonstrably false and stupid.
Or trivially true, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. In fact, somebody else mentioned it, but I keep mentioning this book, The New Atheist Denial of History by Borden Painter, who beat Holocaust denialists in UK libel court. And he goes into real great detail about how Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and
Hitchens
and Michael Shermer and Steven Pinker and quite a few others just lied about history. I have a big question for you, Jim Cornette. If your atheism is so powerful and so indisputable, why do your big heroes have to lie about history? Why do they have to misrepresent science? Why do they have to misrepresent what history actually says? Why? Why lie, Jim? I'll actually, we should probably be wrapping up here, but I'm gonna make an open invitation to Jim Cornette to talk to me publicly or privately. In fact, privately would be better, because here's what I'm going to say to you, Jim. 10 years ago, when you signed on for atheism, it looked like a good cash cow. Plus, you could get your, your revenge for whichever fundamentalist preacher in your family or your friendship, told you you'd go to hell forever if you didn't believe what they said. You got your revenge out. You got to be about my age now, right? In your 40s or 50s somewhere. You're not edgy anymore, Jim. You're not edgy. You're not clever. People have heard your arguments and those of your heroes and found them wanting. Atheism is a dead market. It's a market that's dying and dying fast. You no longer seem clever. You no longer seem funny. By the way, if you see people like Shannon Q or some of those others, point this out to them, please, because it's true. You guys aren't funny anymore. You're not edgy anymore. You're not clever anymore. In fact, you're boring. In fact, I'm going to say fucking boring. All of you are fucking boring, whether it's Godless Engineer, Godless. I like Godless Cranium. He's an all right guy, but he's boring. Logic, you're boring. Jim Cornette, you're boring. Matt Dillahunty, you're boring.
Essence of sophistry, rationality, rules.
Rationality rules. You're boring. You're in your 30s.
Well, to be fair, some of them I don't think are trying to be edgy.
Well, they are trying to be edgy, but you don't think they're trying to be edgy?
Well, I think, like Essence of Thought is, but I don't know. I don't think like Godless not Godless, Godless Cranium and Shannon Q is.
I don't think that Godless Engineer thinks he's edgy. I suspect.
Well, he's edgy.
He's not. Edgy for who? Edgy for who? Motherfucker, it's 2018. Okay? This shit was edgy in 2005.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to be, though.
Yeah, they're trying to
being edgy in 2018 is being an actual Nazi. The bar has been raised.
Oh,
come on. Get punched by
Jim, really, how old are you? You've pissed off your grandmother. You've offended your grandmother.
He's 56.
You know, the local preacher down the store. Do you actually think you're clever and speaking to today's independent now? Do you really? Somebody asked
Noah and Carrier and them all try to be edgy.
Oh my God! Someone asked Noah Plum that question. Somebody asked fucking, I mentioned her before, Shannon. Someone asked Bionic Dan. Somebody asked fucking TJ Kirk. Do you think you're edgy? Do you think you're clever and witty and the new voice of the new generation? Are you old, middle-aged, aging, gaining weight, and looking pathetic as what seemed clever to you more than 10 years ago now just looks pathetic, mean, small-minded, bitter, and ugly? Sorry, that was a patented Max rant, but I'm gonna give it to you. You people are not funny. You're not clever. You're not original. You're not challenging. You're just annoying. And in most cases, you're fucking pathetic. Jim, you suck. Get a new gig. I'll help you. All right,
Max, can you drink for every hangout? I don't like this, Max. You drink for every.
We love you, Max. Come play with us.
We like this, Max.
Jim Cornette, you're boring.
You're an embarrassment to your grandmother.
It's the Red Pill Religion Smackdown.
It's more funny than he tried to be.
Oh, this was great.
Dude,
Yes.
dragging out some of these talking points is like somebody going down to the Cobo Arena and getting in a time machine, going back to the 1990s, and saying, "Look,
Back when life made sense, right?
Look, this guy, the Iron Sheik, he's really hip and cutting edge, and the kids today will love him." Well, you're pathetic, Jim, and so are most of the rest of you. You're not edgy, you're not funny, you're not clever. I'm just repeating myself, but really, you're fucking boring, and in another 10 years, nobody's even going to want to hear you. Why don't you try something new? For example, try what I do, making fun of atheists like you, because really, sir, you're hilariously stupid and pathetic. You really are, and so are most of your co-religionists.
I suspect
Max
you will.
will stop ranting now.
I suspect he will not be accepting your invitation to have a one-on-one.
He
Sadly.
ought to, because I can help him make more money. And by the way, if cowardly Steve McRae would talk to me, because he won't, I've tried, I would actually show him how to make more money too with his great debate society. But none of these guys can do it. They're all too cowardly to say, "Wow, maybe I need a new paradigm."
It's like back when Bret Hart was going heel.
Yeah.
Who Bret Hart is?
Oh, he's a
You
wrestler.
know, like he'll get the reference.
I believe you. I believe you.
In the beginning of the Attitude Era, you know.
I actually mean it. If any of these guys come to me, I'll help them find ways to make new money. But let me tell you what, shitting on Christians is not, and shitting on Jews and Orthodox believing Jews, I mean, shitting on Muslims even is not, I mean, there's some value in that, but even that's not a growth industry. I'm telling you, start making fun of secularists, because Jim Cornette, I'll tell you, Gen Z, the young kids today, the real kids coming up today, they cannot stand millennial atheists. Gen Z kids coming up now cannot stand millennial atheists, and you don't have to be a preacher to see that. I'm sorry. Anybody else got anything?
Well, I mean, I can show them how they can save 6% on money. Say I'm switching to Geico.
15% or more in your car insurance.
By switching to Geico.
Yeah, I feel like I see the same thing. It's basically a race to the bottom. You, like I said, with a Bill Burr comedy routine or Jim Jeffries comedy routine
Or the Fat Elvis routine where you just don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's a race to see who can be the most glib, who can be the most superficial, who can be the most dismissive. And it's really just corrosive at the end of the day. And I think it's fitting that he's a wrestling commentator, and this might upset some people, but I do think there was a man boy culture that particularly came to a head in the late 90s, spilling over into the early 2000s. And I think you had, this is not a criticism of all these guys, but you had guys like Howard Stern and Tom Lakis and Adam Carolla and Joe Rogan, and just the whole man boy culture where we're comfortable first world guys. We're in our man caves. We're not challenging ourselves. We're very comfortable, and anything we don't like is stupid, and we're just going to trivialize anything that is lofty or beautiful because it challenges us in our dank little sweaty man caves. And so I really think New Atheism was really kind of born of this milieu. And I throw the shock jocks and the man show guys. And this is not a girl, like I even like Howard Stern, but I think the time has come where we can see the limits of that kind of mentality, where we just try to drag everything down to the base level. I think it's really starting to chafe, and it's really gotten old.
Amen. Amen. It has. I mean, really, I could be an atheist and be better than most of them.
Yes.
I really could. I really could. I would about some Sartre, some Nietzsche, some Hume.
If Nietzsche and Sartre were alive today, they'd probably spit on these guys.
They would
commit suicide and become Catholic. They would be that upset by these people. That's what I truly believe. That's what Nietzsche.
Or Nietzsche will probably laugh himself to death after reading the God Delusion.
Oh my God, I know.
Could you picture Nietzsche laughing?
Yeah. All right, let's have some final thoughts and close this out. Because I'm going to have an offer for Jim, an offer I'll repeat for Steve McRae and for a few others. Because really, you got to get out of atheism. But who's last chance and final thoughts? Who's got one?
Bring back the 90s.
All right, you're done. Thank you, White Engine. And who else has a final thought they want to get out?
This video.
Robert?
Oh, you go, Robert.
Yeah. This video was just so bad. It almost wasn't worth responding to just because of its, sheer amount of ignorance. But I'm glad we did it anyway. That's my final thought.
Thank you, Robert. You're always a treasure to have on. Brass, you had a final thought?
Yes, I want to say that it was nice, being able to debunk a celebrity atheist. I kind of consider this like, a Memorial Day special debunking of an atheist. It's a holiday, so we have to get a holiday-worthy person. So, yeah, this was good. I love this. And we also got to see Mad Michigan Max mode again, so this was great, too.
I did rant. I did rant again. I'm good at it. All right. Gay Wad, go ahead. You got a final thought? I'm teasing you. All right, Derek. All right, no final thoughts from Derek. Deflating, did you get your final thought, or did you have one?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know how much of a celebrity this guy is, but yeah, there are a lot of guys like this saying a lot of stupid shit. That's all the same. It's basically boilerplate.
All right. Well, here's going to be my final thought for Jim Cornette. It's actually for Steve McRae. It's actually for a few others that I can tell have real talent. And I do think Jim Cornette has some talent. I think Steve McRae has talent. I think a few others in that community do. Shannon, although I give her a hard time because I don't like her. Godless Cranium, he's actually got talent. A few others. Logic actually has some talent. It's wasted, but he has it. All you guys and a few of you others who have real talent and real ambitions should realize, even if you bought into atheism and made some investments, it's not a growth field. And you don't have to become a Christian fundamentalist or a Christian to get out of it. There's religious, interesting people all over the place. They're not all Christian. Yes, I'm Christian, and I'd like you to be Christian with me, but I'm not the kind of Christian. I'm nothing like somebody like, say, we're nothing like somebody like, say, Christian anarchist, Calvinist, King James Bible literalist, all that crap. But even outside of the Christians, I've had so many fascinating conversations with Orthodox Jews. I've had so many fascinating conversations with Hindus. I've had so many fascinating, enlightening conversations with people of other religions. Yes, even Muslims. You're on a losing strategy, guys. This was the hot hip thing more than 10 years ago, and you're aging and you're looking bad now. Because this is not where the kids are. Gen Z can't handle atheism. They can't stand it. They see atheism as something to rebel against. Jim Cornette, I'm going to repeat to you and to any of the other people I've mentioned, the kids today, because none of you are kids anymore, the kids today, the Gen Zs, see you snotty atheists as people to rebel against. You're not the new kid on the block anymore. You're old and middle-aged and boring, and you're someone to rebel against. At some point, you should realize you know what? There's lots of reasons to think that there's something more than what science can show us, and religious and spiritual people are everywhere. Shouldn't I make friends with them? Doesn't their money spend, those spiritual people, whatever their spirituality, doesn't their money spend? Aren't they at least interesting? Don't I want them as my audience too? Don't I want more friends, more family who have ideas I don't necessarily share, but at least interesting? The atheist victim posturing is also looking pretty old. It really, really is. Oh, I'm a victim because I'm an atheist. Stop it. There are people who give atheists a hard time, but religious people get shit on all the time now. In fact, Jim Cornette, you and your atheist goons, friends for the last 10, 15 years have helped establish it that Christians and other religious people will get mocked and made fun of on a regular basis. Time to find another target, because otherwise it gets old. And there's a whole world of people with money and ideas out there who aren't atheists you ought to explore. All right, everybody, please give us a like. Please give us a subscribe. Please check us out on redpillreligion.com. We're here every night. And please thank everybody. Deflating Atheism, still one of my favorite YouTube channels. Derek, gay atheist anarchist, Mr. Brass, Dimitri, Robert, White Engine, appreciate you all so much. And thank you so much for being here. The anti-atheist, true rationalist movement is continuing to move and continuing to grow. So please find us on redpillreligion.com, and God bless.